Hello everyone again, welcome back to the analysis and expectations, and we're now on to the Blitz EU Cup. So it's going to be the second last of all the 4 Blitz Cup series. Without further ado, let's start analyzing. Let's talk about the general meta of the EU server. EU server is arguably, and I think it's the most competitive server out of all the servers in this game. So EU server has generally been very tactical, and also they've played a lot with bases as well as trying to kill all 7 tanks. So average battle duration for the EU server, it's around 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That's the same for Asia server, and the medium is 3 minutes and 31 seconds. That's a lot lower than the mean, which is surprising. And the standard deviation is the first server we are seeing right now with over a minute of that, 61.8 seconds to be exact. And meanwhile, we have the cap win percentage hovering at around 35.4%. So standard deviation is definitely something to look for, because the higher the standard deviation, the more uncertain that battle duration will be. So we don't know if it's going to be a very quick game or it's going to be a really long game. And I think you'll be expecting for the EU server, we don't know basically where the game's going to be very quick or be really slow. And we have the top 5 tanks here. T110E5 with 509 users. After that we have the T22 medium with 144 users. IS4 third place with 103 users, 215B with 64 users, and finally the 5th place Object 140 with 39 users. However, that's to note that a lot of the users come from Legion side, so Legion has used them for more than 30 times. That takes up a lot of percentage. And below that we have the Vickers Light, and Vickers Light is much more common for among all the top 4 clans. So more than 500 times been used for the TE110E5. That's certainly a really high usage here. Are we going to see a lot of E5 in the tournaments? We probably will. And let's talk about the head-to-head results of the top 4 clans. So we start off with Legion against Loka. It's a 4-3 victory for Legion, and then against Raid they lost 3-4 and they won endgame 4-3. So all of them have been involving tiebreakers, so they are really tense. And after that we have Loka against endgame. It's going to be 4-1 for Loka, and against Raid is 4-2 for Loka. And after that we have endgame. You know that they lost to Legion 3-4, and against Raid they won 4-1. And finally Raid, it's going to be well, I mean, you know the results already, so and then we start off with Legion first. Legion has been a really interesting clan to watch, especially the last few games. They have been exceptionally good. They are really good with very broad play. This gives a really big disadvantage, as well as some really good advantages as well. But they will try to make use of the space in the map to kind of get map control. If they could find a weak spot on the enemies, they will try to kind of consolidate, contract their formation very quickly. This could mean that Legion can make a really narrow, solid push onto the enemies if they found something is not right, and get some really good crossfire. Obviously, pincer movement is something that they would be doing a lot here. They have the lowest cap win percentage at around 25.9%. That's very low. They also have the lowest average battle duration. They probably want to kind of win the battles by killing all 7 tanks and trying to make it quick. So you'll be expecting some really quick games from Legion. In fact, the lowest average battle duration is around 3 minutes and 29 seconds. However, they have the highest weighted score, 1.80. As for broad play with such a high score, it can be dangerous, but we'll see how Legion is going to evolve with this. The higher the average score, the heavier the lineup is, and obviously Legion also love their 2-8, particularly taken by Object 3. So Legion with a very heavy setup and with a very broad play, will that be a recipe for disaster, or will that be the recipe for success? We're going to see on Friday and Saturday. And next we have Loka. Loka is a clan that I remember doing really well in micro details, which means trying to focus fire. They've done pretty good with the priority as well. They will try to focus down those very mobile tanks as first, those high DPM tanks as first. They often leave those mouse at the end or try to ignore the tanks which drop the reactive armor as much as possible. Another thing to note, they try to kind of hit point pull share, and that's been done by lots of shielding, and also low hit point tanks, they love to move back, and that's something that I don't see too much in a lot of clans. And with Loka being really good with the micro details, would that be enough to get them into #1 territory? We'll find it really soon. However, they also love playing with caps. In fact, they had the highest cap win percentage, and I think the highest so far we've seen for all 4 clans. They have 48%. Almost half of their games have come from cap wins. They also have a really long battle duration. Not really long actually. 3 minutes and 45 seconds, but they have a much lower average win battle duration, so they usually win if the games happen more quickly. They would love to find the weakness of the enemies and try to push and kill those isolated tanks, and they also have the lowest weighted score, so that gives them a lot of room to rotate and provide information to the team. I mean, they also can go really broad, those mediums and lights, trying to snatch those bases early on in the game. 1.68 is their weighted score. And then we have endgame EG. They love finding the weakness of the enemies, and those days they do some cap plays as well. They've been particularly strong against Win. I recommend you to watch those games. Exceptionally beautiful games from endgame. We haven't seen that a lot during the Blitz Cup preliminaries, and I think they will be the most uncertain team heading into the Blitz Cup finals here. I mean, they've shown some big promise during the big games, and Focus Fire hasn't been the best so far, but I suppose that could be a lot different. You can see in the Blitz EU Cup, they have much higher average win battle duration, so they really love to drag the battle on for a really long time. Originally, the average battle duration is around 3 minutes and 32 seconds, and average win battle duration is much higher with 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Well, 23 seconds longer. So you could obviously see that endgame is much more comfortable when they are playing longer, and they have the highest standard deviation as well for the average win battle duration with 1 minute and 5 seconds. Oh, they also have much lower win battle duration from 3 minutes and 32 seconds originally to 3 minutes and 40 seconds, so they don't want to wrap the games too quickly. So is that an indication that if you want to win against endgame, you have to kind of win the game very quickly? We don't know, but that's a very interesting piece of statistics for you. And finally, they love T110E5, 149 times used for that tank. What can we expect from endgame in the end? Let's see on Friday. And finally, we have Raid. Raid is actually a very strategical clan. They have some really interesting initial strats, and then their late game strategies, the way they push the enemies, the way they found the isolated tanks and try to push them out is also very interesting to watch, and something that a lot of clans might want to learn and also watch. Because if you have some very isolated tanks while you're playing broadly, that usually doesn't translate into a win for you, so you have to be careful about Raid finding that and figuring out an unusual way of taking you out with that. However, they also love caps, so it's not just about rushing. They try to get the caps in between as well. They have the second highest cap win percentage with 42.9%, and they have the longest average battle duration with 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Well, what's even worse is that they have the longest average win battle duration at 4 minutes and 8 seconds, and the standard deviation of that is amazingly high with 1 minute and 17 seconds. So you never know if they're going to win the battle at a really late time, or they're going to do it very quickly. You never know. 1 minute and 17 seconds. I mean, if Raid wins the battle in less than 3 minutes, it's normal. If they win the battle after 5 minutes, it's also normal. We never know. So you can also argue that Raid can be the least predictable team here. You also have the lowest loss battle duration with only 45 seconds. They also have this figure much lower, from 3 minutes and 55 seconds down to 3 minutes and 42 seconds. So there is a higher chance that they will lose if the games are more quickly. They use the T110E5 150 times. That's a heck lot. There is a reason why people really love T110E5s on the EU server, mainly because of the reactive armor and the extra consumables and provisions, and also it has decent armor and also gun as well. When you can go really quickly, you can move to another spot in a very short period of time. And finally, we're going to talk about maps for the EU server. To make it brief, the most heavy maps, oriented maps, will be Rockfield, Dynasty's Pearl, Mine Ruins, and also Fort Despair. You will be expecting Fort Despair and also Mine Ruins, and also Dynasty's Pearl as among the most heavy oriented maps, but Rockfield is an interesting choice here. For all the servers, Rockfield has been really mobile for CIS region, if I remember correctly, and for it to be really heavy here, probably might be expecting a lot more stale game, not really stale per se, but a lot more static gameplay. I think that's to do with how easy the rotations can be spotted up, and sometimes the EU servers love to do late game rotations, but for like CIS servers, they also go really aggressively, but the map is also pretty big and undulated, so that it's easy to kind of isolate the enemy tanks using your mediums and lights. So that's probably the reason why you might be seeing some difference here. And for the most mobile maps, we have Blackoville, Desert and Vineyards. Nothing much to talk about here. As for the maps you're going to see for on Friday, we're going to start off with Blackoville, and then it's going to be Mine Ruins, and finally it's going to be Port Bay. So these maps, Blackoville obviously very oriented to mediums, and Port Bay a little bit as well. While Mine Ruins would be good for really good heavy, so for clans who emphasize more on kind of like stability. Probably, I don't know about probably Legion here. Mine Ruins might be a good map for them, and for like more mobile setup, Local would benefit for maps like Blackoville and also Port Bay. As for the games in the lower bracket first round, we have Middleburg, and then we have Faust, and finally it's going to be Oasis Palms. So Middleburg is kind of like in between, so I think it's all down to whether those teams have good rotations and so on. It has always been the rotations which won or lost the team game. And then you have Faust. Faust is actually, it's more heavy oriented as usual. For most of the other servers, Faust has been a little bit more heavy, so it could benefit clans who play a little bit more static here. And finally we have Oasis Palms, a really large map, so map control is pretty important, but to my surprise it's actually not very mobile at all. So these three maps have been quite consistent in kind of whether it's mainly mobile, mainly it's heavy. So it's the lower bracket first round. I believe we're going to see some really strategical gameplays there, and more to do with whether you could make use of those bases there. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this analysis and expectations, and you should also read the forum post I posted as well, where I do publish those show matches like with the references there. Really good read. I talk about my predictions there as well. And if you like this content more, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all on Friday, although I won't be streaming any of the matches on Friday, but I'll be analyzing on Saturday. So I hope you will be excited as I am for the Blitz EU Cup.